Cast Their Crowns, Inc. Again, family advocacy, education starts at home. This is definitely one thing that we want to bring to everybody's attention. There is something that's going on, right? Masculinity. Let's talk about masculinity for a second. Masculinity is an energy, right? Just like femininity. It's an energy. It's a source. It's a power. And it is a power that should be celebrated by both people who represent masculinity and people who represent femininity, typically a man and a woman. Now, masculinity ultimately comes from God Almighty, right? Because he is a man, he represents the ultimate level of what a man can reach. He also represents the ultimate level of the characteristics of God, of what anybody who wants to be a good person should be aspiring to get to. But I digress. Masculinity. We don't really hear too much about masculinity. However, there's one thing that we hear about, which is toxic masculinity. I will beg to differ that toxic masculinity is actually someone who's behaving masculine that's not a man. What do I mean by that? Toxic masculinity would really be a woman who's behaving in a masculine manner. Therefore, it's not appropriate masculinity, it's toxic. What do I mean by that? Toxic masculinity is something of which we hear of, but it's really just an attack on masculinity because over time, we've been seeing a feminizing of masculine energy. That's what we've been seeing. But yet we've been seeing a masculinizing, if I can say that, of actual women. And women saying, I had to be masculine in order to do A, B, and C. I beg to differ. Why do I beg to differ? Because if a woman, in order to be successful in life, has to be masculine, then how do you explain a queen? A queen who's the spouse to a king is not masculine. A queen is pampered, but a queen has rulership. She has jurisdiction in her husband's kingdom. So a queen has power, but a queen is not masculine. So, if she is able to govern an entire kingdom under her husband, the king, and maintain her femininity, why can't you work in a cubicle and still be feminine? Case in point, femininity should be celebrated. Masculinity is attracted to femininity because opposites attract. When you have two women who are in a relationship, one of those women generally display masculine behavior and they look or appear to be masculine. And the other woman appears to be feminine. That's the appearance that people would look, and that's the conclusion that people would typically come to. The reason why that is because femininity and masculinity attracts each other. So for a relationship to be productive, you need masculine energy and feminine energy. Toxic masculinity. Over the past several decades, we have seen time and time again, especially when it comes to reality TV, we've seen women as gorgeous as they could be. Makeup, wonderful. Hair, wonderful. Outfit, wonderful. Scene, wonderful. I mean, they could be on the most beautiful island in the world. The sun is setting, glistening off of their beautiful skin, and they're fighting each other. They're throwing champagne flutes at one another. They're pulling one another's hair out. But you never heard that that is actually toxic femininity. The movie Soul Food, the most accomplished character in the movie was chasing her husband around the kitchen amongst the entire family with an instrument to kill him. That's the most accomplished one in the movie. You have cartoons like Ratatouille where the girlfriend in the movie slapped her boyfriend in the face. Is that not toxic femininity? Right? So we have to think about these things. Why is there even such a saying as toxic masculinity? What exactly is that? What exactly is that? We don't know what that is because we're seeing so much aggression and so much violence. You could watch a nighttime talk show and see a woman be interviewed in the street and she'll be asked, what would you do if you found out your husband did X, Y, and Z? And she'd look before the whole United States of America and every other nation where that show is being broadcasted and say, I'll kill him. I'll slap him. I'll punch him in the face. He won't make it home that night, and everybody will just laugh. Is that toxic femininity? So if that's what you accept, what exactly you're saying? Because there's no cavemen on TV that's being brutish and harmful and, like beating down women, and that's something that people accept. That's not being accepted anywhere. Nobody's gathering around in a circle, and there's not an audience there for that where they applaud that. But we're applauding women saying they'll be violent against the men of their own homes. So what exactly is toxic masculinity? Can you identify toxic femininity? And can you actually celebrate masculinity? Or are you against masculinity? So when you see masculinity, because you don't see it coupled with violence and then you call it toxic masculinity, you see it and you just say that's toxic masculinity. But you're opposed to masculinity. That's what you're really against. So you label it as such. Because violence is going on in same-sex relationships. So if it's women that's involved in same-sex relationships and one of those women display masculine conduct and she's an aggressor and brings harm to her dainty or her feminine significant other, is that toxic masculinity? That question is for you to answer.